The dynamic that most agents will find themselves in is that their clients are seeking actionable and reliable real estate information. And the reality is that those consumers are probably not going to you for that information, right? When they want to know what their home is worth, they're going to Zillow to see what Zillow thinks their home is worth. When they want to see new listings that hit the market, they're using their Redfin app. And so that makes it a little difficult to, broach the conversation or the topic of agency, because up until that point, 100% of the value that they've received has come from a third party. So if you can be the one to get in front of that, you can be the one to give that information ahead of time, you're going to be in a much better position.
Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm really excited for this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long time coming. We've talked so much about RealScout, so I want to make sure everyone knows exactly who you are. I'm thrilled to be here today with Andrew Flachner, co-founder and president of RealScout. Andrew has a lot of recognition in the industry, 100 most influential real estate leaders list by Inman News, Forbes 30 under 30, Silicon Valley Business Journal's top 40 under 40, and has been featured numerous times, I believe, speaker at Inman Connect and other brand conferences. A mouthful, that introduction, but I wanted to be sure to put that right out there. I'm really grateful for your time today. And I know we've met a couple times, and definitely back when you were getting started. So I'd love for you to talk about RealScout, just what that is, and give us a little bit of a background on your story, if you could.
Sure, absolutely. And thanks so much for having me on today and for all the support over the years. I founded RealScout 12 years ago, and you were one of our earliest supporters and always have been. So thank you. And it's been fun to go through this journey with the support of people like you. I founded RealScout out of a pain point that I myself had when I was a real estate agent. I realized that a lot of the times I wanted to engage and nurture my contacts and my clients, but there was just one problem with that. Those contacts were off on national search portals. They were getting their information elsewhere. And no matter how much I invested in my website, no matter how much I, begged my clients to use my software, they would still go back to these national portals where they would see ads for other agents. And I wanted to make sure that we didn't have a wedge between agents and clients. I wanted to make sure we invested in helping the agents, teams, and brokerages amplify the value that they bring to their transactions. So, we do that at RealScout for over 100,000 agents across the country now. And we do that using property alerts, market activity alerts, home value alerts, essentially anything that Zillow or Redfin or Realtor.com would send to your clients. We want to make sure that you, the agent, can be empowered to do that.
I love that. Yes. And our adoption rate is through the roof. Our agents have embraced the tool over the years. We've probably been on it around that, 10-year mark, I would say, but just embrace everything new that you've done with it. And that's something that I love, that you sort of pivot it as other things change, and the way that client-facing relationships are. You're always kind of, I think, releasing different iterations and ways to stay in touch with your clients. So I appreciate that. And I didn't realize you were an agent initially, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I actually got my start selling real estate when I was in high school, believe it or not. And it was even back then that I realized how much technology was driving a wedge between my clients and myself. And I thought, hey, there must be a better way. So I moved to Silicon Valley, raised a ton of venture capital, hired really talented engineers, and together we built a product that has become an industry staple.
That's amazing. I got my real estate license in high school as well.
Oh, nice.
So yes, today we're going to discuss a topic that I've actually seen you do a couple times. And I just wanted to make sure I was really excited to bring that here. And what you've discussed, what I love is right now, a lot of people, they're nervous. There's a level of uncertainty sort of across the board, across the nation, across the industry. And you've come at this admitting that, right? So you're addressing this triple threat, but really how to hedge ourselves against it. And so I wanted to just dive right into that today, because I think that is such a good way to look at it. And it kind of goes to that control what you can, right? So I like your approach here. And so if you could walk us through just what are those threats that you're referring to before we even dive into how to hedge against them?
Sure. So I think that one of the threats that's on everyone's mind right now is the consequence of the NAR settlement, and there's a lot of uncertainty there. So I'm not here to proclaim what those I'm not here to proclaim what those consequences might be or how that will impact everyone's business specifically. But we're not out of the woods there. There's also high-ish interest rates. They have come down recently, but I think that that story is still playing out. And then the rising cost of and competition for leads in our business, right? A lot of people are struggling with keeping their business afloat or in the black, and they're spending a lot of money on lead gen, not necessarily convinced on the ROI of those investments. So especially as there's consolidation in the space, we're seeing that the cost of leads is continuing to increase. On the referral side, if you have referral partners, those referral rates have gone from 25% over the years, inching up, ratcheting up to close to 40%. And then the cost per lead side of the business is also seeing some hikes.
Yeah, for sure. And so we sort of talked about, now we have all these threats. Obviously, RealScout focuses on how to nurture your client relationships, how to stay in touch. And so how do you recommend that agents, whether it's use the tool or just in general, that's something that you're obviously focused on, stay in touch with their clients, nurture those relationships? And when should they be doing it? I think I know the answer to that question, but I think some people are afraid right now to talk to clients, and it's probably the wrong way to be. This is actually the time that you need to get in touch.
Sure. So I think it's good for me to give some advice to your entire audience, whether or not they use RealScout. And the reality is that there are some best practices that you should employ in your business, regardless of what technology you use or whether you use technology at all. What we've realized over the years, and I can say this because I've been an agent, you have to, sometimes there's this instinct to be more coin operated. And what I mean by that is buying more leads. Business is slow. Let me just throw another $1,000 at a lead gen platform. The reality is, though, that you have a large asset. Your largest asset is your database. It's the people you've already connected with. Maybe they're leads you've already purchased. Maybe they're past clients, folks in your sphere of influence. That is your largest asset. And so keeping in touch with those folks, keeping them nurtured and keeping them warm is absolutely essential. In fact, I'd go a step further and to say that given the triple threat facing the industry right now, the cost of leads soaring, interest rates still in a place where they're causing some pause with clients, and then of course the NAR settlement, it is now essential that you begin nurturing those contacts and maintain that nurture much earlier in the process. Right. I think that in our industry, there's actually in any industry, just, human nature is to focus on what's right in front of you. So if you have a listing that pops up or you get a referral, all of your energy will be focused on that. But after you process that pipeline, after you serve those clients and those deals are closed, then you're left with an empty pipeline. So if you can keep those relationships warm earlier, it's going to be really important to do that, especially with the NAR settlement, because now there's going to be some new conversations that you're going to be having with your clients around agency and around buyer representation agreements, formalizing those relationships. And what a lot of agents are going to do, they're going to spend all this effort, all this concentrated effort right at the point of signing that agreement, right? They're going to redo their buyer consultation. They're going to pitch their services in a new way. That's important. I don't want to downplay that. But what's even more important is nurturing the relationship before that conversation, because it'll make that conversation go a lot more smoothly.
I love that. When we chatted before this, that was the biggest thing I took away, was exactly that. People are nervous. And we've been addressing that just in and of itself. Like, don't dive into this lengthy explanation when someone asks you a question. Take a step back, take a breath, ask them to clarify what they're asking about, because chances are, from a consumer standpoint that has no involvement in the industry, they don't have an in-depth knowledge, and we don't need to scare them by, diving down all these rabbit holes when they might just have a simple question or we need a simple clarification. And then on top of that, I've layered in what you had mentioned too in all of my conversations, which we're having a lot right now, is exactly that. Just let's not make it the first time we have that conversation. Like, what a concept to not, there's nothing wrong with what's happening right now. There's ways that you can talk about it that just sound proactive, and it would just make a tremendous difference for you, even in your nerves entering that conversation. If that's something that you've put messaging out around, if you've already sent that out to your sphere and people are familiar and you're not completely caught off guard in that moment, and neither are they.
Yeah. And I would say just a reminder that the dynamic that most agents will find themselves in is that their clients are seeking actionable and reliable real estate information. And the reality is that those consumers are probably not going to you for that information, right? When they want to know what their home is worth, they're going to Zillow to see what Zillow thinks their home is worth. When they want to see new listings that hit the market, they're using their Redfin app. And so that makes it a little difficult to, broach the conversation or the topic of agency, because up until that point, 100% of the value that they've received has come from a third party. So if you can be the one to get in front of that, you can be the one to give that information ahead of time, you're going to be in a much better position.
I love that. Talk to me about channel balancing, just what that is. What does it require? That's something that I've heard you touch on.
Yeah, so channel balancing is a marketing framework that we feel really strongly about. It's something that applies to your tech and marketing efforts. Again, this is completely agnostic to RealScout. This works great with any strategy or tactics that you have. But channel balancing, it deals with this problem that a lot of agents and teams have, which is you want to increase your marketing budget, but there's a little bit of a challenge in doing that, because if you have existing channels, maybe you already have like a PPC campaign or an open house strategy, you can't just dump more money into those existing channels, because what you'll find is that your conversion rate will drop and your cost per lead will increase. In fact, some channels you may find the ceiling for, like those channels may run dry. When it comes to new channels, there's a whole different challenge there. Like if you want to, take on a new strategy, you might find that it takes a long time to validate the depth of that channel and the payback of that channel. So let me give you an example. The holy grail in marketing is understanding the cost per acquisition, or the cost per closing in this case. So let's just say that you are going to launch a new advertising campaign, and it's going to cost you think it's going to cost you $1,000 to find a lead that will close. The problem is that it takes so long in real estate to acquire a lead and wait for it to close. I mean, that could be like a multi-year process, but it's certainly not a multi-day process, right? You acquire a lead, there's some percentage chance that they will close, but you need to build a relationship. You need to show them homes. You need to negotiate a contract. You need to get through escrow. And so what we've been advising our customers to do is find what we call early indicator metrics, right? This would be metrics earlier in the funnel where you can get a clue as to whether or not these efforts are panning out. Are they working? So an example would be if you buy a lead, and this is a buyer lead, for example, you want to keep track of things like your email open rates and your phone connect rates, and if they've interacted with your listings that you're sending them, because those early indicator metrics are going to inform whether or not your campaigns are working. Now, the whole notion of channel balancing, this is really critical, is shifting budget from your worst performing campaigns to your best performing campaigns. And I think as a real estate agent, there's always this trade-off between actually doing the business, meaning serving your clients, driving around buyers, sitting open houses, negotiating contracts, and building your business on the marketing side. So sometimes the building your business on the marketing side takes a back seat, but that's where you really need to be data driven. You really need to actually look at all of your campaigns, measure those early indicator metrics, and then shift some budget from your worst performing campaigns to your best performing campaigns. Everyone has a different opinion of this. Some of the big real estate coaches think that your marketing should be this mosaic of different strategies. I personally believe that it's better to focus on those strategies that are going to drive the most business and double down on those. So in obvious examples, if you're running multiple pay-per-click campaigns, PPC campaigns, and you have three to five of these things running, you see that your conversion rate on your pay-per-click campaign number 3 is not as good as pay-per-click number 1, shift some budget around. But the real kicker, and what requires a lot of discipline, is if pay-per-click in Google Ads, let's say, is just not performing as well as, database marketing, you actually should be shifting more of your efforts and more of your money away from, PPC in general, and dump that into your database marketing strategy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And what I love about it is I think everyone's always eager to hear things like this, right? This podcast or what we might recommend. But to your point, if something's working better for you, just doubling down on that and not feeling like, well, if I don't do that, my competitor is. It's not necessarily how it works. So I like that. Just focus on really what's working for you, especially right now. I just think it helps people hone in. And so I love that. And I guess a follow-up question to that would be, a lot of people this year, especially, their budgets might not be where they were before, right? Or maybe they just don't have any room in that budget to grow. What's your recommendation to generate more business with that lead gen in mind for someone that might not be able to increase that budget this year?
Yeah. So again, there's this knee-jerk reaction to go towards lead gen, which is like, how do I buy more leads? And you see people on Facebook all the time saying, hey, what are the best lead gen sources? But the conversation that I think doesn't get as much attention as it deserves is database marketing, right? These are contacts you already have. In many cases, you've already purchased these leads. Maybe they're leads you bought online, maybe they're open house leads, et cetera, but they're sitting in what we call a dead-a-base, not a database, but a database of stale leads. And there's a lot of ways that you can generate business from an existing database. And these might be people who, you generated these leads 5 years ago, and we're helping our customers all the time. We happen to use RealScout to do this, but I'm going to give you some tactics that you can use regardless of what software you invest in. But we help our customers take these dead, stale leads that they didn't think were even real anymore and generate transactions from them. So this is a concept called iterative database mining. I'm going to say that one more time. Iterative database mining. And it's this process where you take your lead list. Let's just say that you have a list of every open house lead that you've ever received in a spreadsheet. First thing you want to do is you want to filter out any bad or fake email addresses. And this is really important because there's something called a spam canary, where if you email a fake email address, some of those email addresses may actually flag you as a spammer, and you don't want that. So there are plenty of services out there that you can use that you can, for a couple $100, you can just run all of those email addresses through a filter, and it'll flag many of the fake or bad email addresses out there. Yeah, one of those services is called, I think, Zero Bounce, but go ahead and do your research and filter out those bad or fake email addresses. The next step is you want to throw all of these contacts into a high engagement content drip. Now, for some of you, that may mean that you are using a CRM and you come up with your own drip campaign. That's great. We happen to recommend something like RealScout. There's other services out there like, Ylopo, and Fellow's a really great one, where you can essentially take your contacts and begin to drip on those contacts, but not with your standard, gardening tips and daylight savings reminders. This is really more about real estate data that they would typically get on a national portal. So this would be, listing alerts, home value alerts, market activity. So, we think a lot about this at RealScout because that's really all we do. But once you put these folks into a content drip, then you can monitor what the responses are, right? Some of those emails will still bounce. That's okay. You want to discard those contacts. You have some folks who in your database will reach out with what I call shallow intent. Maybe they're kind of curious, but they're not very serious. And in that case, you want to put them on a long-term nurture campaign. Maybe just keep them up to date on their home's value every month. And then you have your high intent people in your database that are going to, frantically wave their hands in the air saying, hey, I'm so happy you reached out, Nicole, because I'm looking to put my home on the market in the next few months, or I'm very serious about buying in a particular neighborhood. And in those cases, you want to make sure that you flag those contacts and that you work with them directly, or that you have somebody in your team manage that as quickly as possible. So the holy grail of this iterative database mining, by the way, it's called iterative because you're going to do this over and over again, right? You're going to run your contacts through this process, and then you're going to go ahead and run them through it again and again until you can really get the cream to rise to the top. But this iterative database mining process is really nice when you can automate it entirely. So, one of the ways that we've seen our customers at RealScout do this is with a CRM. So with certain CRMs, you can connect with RealScout, you can ingest all of your leads, we'll nurture them so you don't have to. In fact, we'll even, in some cases, run your contacts through a bad or fake email address detection layer, but then we will automatically nurture your contacts and surface the ones who are ready to transact so you don't miss them. But iterative database mining, this is going to be a conversation or a term that you're going to hear a lot more in the coming months because a lot of agents and teams can't afford to be buying new leads, and this is a great way to not have to.
I love this. And I want to underscore just how many times you just said database. I just feel like I can't harp on that enough for people, that no matter what you're doing, all these tools and things that you're recommending, everything's such like, there's nothing that's a bad idea that you're saying, but if you don't have your database, so when we're talking about maybe someone that doesn't have that budget, like I mentioned at the beginning of that question, that database mining on your own, just making sure you said database, whatever it is, get yourself organized. That doesn't cost you anything, right? And that's going to help these tools work for you a lot better. I mean, you have a lot of automation to help them with that as well. And then just to underscore, Gibson Sotheby's International Realty pays for RealScout for everyone. So if you're a part of Gibson Sotheby's International Realty and your budget is a little lower this year, or you haven't been able to expand upon it, I think just looking at that, thinking about that, just get into RealScout. We have our own internal learning platform to help you get started on that if you haven't got started, or dive a little deeper. And then they have incredible learning suite as well, as far as I know. So that's another idea if your budget is a little smaller this year.
And I'd argue that if you have no budget or you have a small budget, then you have no choice. You have to focus on ROI. You have to focus on database marketing, and that's a great place to be, by the way. So don't beat yourself up about that. If you do have budget and you are going to be spending money on advertising, you want to make sure that you're not filling a leaky bucket. And that's where, again, making sure that your automations are in place, making sure that your marketing is in place is going to pay huge dividends for you.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, I know the reason we ended up even talking and setting this up was because I saw your announcement that you had set up a partnership with the Sotheby's International Realty company-owned affiliates, or I guess that's not what they refer to them as. But I was excited to see that. I think that this is one of those tools that the more people that are on it, the better. So I'm always happy to see anyone joining it. And I'm always happy to talk to people that are trying to get the lay of the land there. So I wanted to just ask you to run us through, what does that mean for someone that might be listening and be on that list?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you belong to a Sotheby's International Realty company on location, be sure to reach out to your office manager or someone in leadership, because you because you may have access to RealScout. Most stores across the country do have access. And if you are an affiliate, then we actually have a partnership with Sotheby's International Realty that allows you to gain access to RealScout at a steeply discounted rate. So in that case, again, reach out to your office manager or somebody in leadership to get you on the right track there.
In the coming year, is there anything personally or professionally you're most excited for?
Yeah, I think that, personally, I have a 1.5-year-old, so every day has been a journey in watching him grow and develop. It's been a ton of fun. Professionally, I think that, sometimes change is scary. Many times change is scary, but with all the changes that are upon us, it's always an opportunity to see the industry level up. And so I'm excited to see how that shakes out. I'm excited to play a small role in helping the industry evolve towards a level of great service and lucrative businesses for our partners.
I couldn't agree with you more. I'm very bullish on what's next and seeing that cream of the crop rise. So I'm excited about that. I too have a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old. So I'm in your same boat on that front too. Will you be at the GNE?
I will. Yeah, I'll be there. I'm looking forward to seeing you and everyone else who's listening.
So yes, I guess I'll see you in person there, and probably a lot of people that are listening too. So if anyone needs to know how to get in touch, or I guess not maybe necessarily directly in touch with Andrew, but any more information on RealScout, please feel free to reach out to me. I think everyone knows how to find me. And thank you. Look for us on next Wednesday. That's when we release these. Thank you so much for being with us today. I know how busy your schedule is.
Thanks, Nicole. It was fun.